in today's midweek edition of your Breakfast on Leadership Television inside Nigeria. Today is November 26th, 2025. Gradually, just few days to go. And of course, the month of the November will be history and usher us into December, the last ember month in the year 2025. Of course, my name is Winifred Ugbebo. I'm in a good mood this morning considering the fact that there's been release of abductors since the past week or by bandits. There's release. Let's go to leadership. Of course, that's what the story, all the papers we have on our lineup, even the national papers today, other national papers are celebrating as their main cover story. Let's head up to Nigeria's most influential newspaper, Leadership. Leadership says 24 abducted Kebbi schoolgirls rescued in Niger State, coming from Matawale, the Minister of Defense. No ransom paid. Security operatives extend gunfire with abductors before rescue, coming from Minister. Tinubu says, I'm relieved all 24 girls have been accounted for. And leadership also has a picture of the released abducted schoolgirls gracing the cover. We see them there beneath the leading story. The 24 schoolgirls rescued by a combined team of security operatives in Makwa, Niger State yesterday. Congratulations to the federal government for this rescue. Still on leadership newspaper, we have 27 banks here to clear recapitalization hurdle. Central Bank retains interest rate at 27%. U.S. officials present as Nigerian lawmakers debate security crisis. That story is on page 88 of leadership. U.S. officials present as Nigerian lawmakers debate security crisis. Dangote partners Honeywell International for refinery upgrade to 1.4 million barrels per day. Owerri, Enugu, Yola, Ilorin airports cleared for night operations, says airspace agency. Gun in my daughter's mouth, Niger Catholic school teacher. Okay, bandit puts gun in my daughter's mouth, Niger Catholic school teacher. That story is on page 18 of leadership. Bandits put gun in my daughter's mouth, but thank God nothing happened at the end of the day. And atop the masthead of leadership, we really cherish this leadership award, TMP chairman. And lastly, on the cover of leadership, teachers threaten nationwide strike over grain attacks on schools. And that concludes the review of front headline stories on leadership newspaper. We move to page 3 of the paper where we have our stand. Today's stand is on judiciary beyond the president's charge. Judiciary beyond the president's charge. There's no doubt that many Nigerians today have their opinions about the country's judiciary. For most, it borders on confidence betrayed, while for many, despondency has become their attitude towards that institution, which ought to reflect the best to be expected of a presumed temple of justice. Over the years, the conduct of some judicial officers has left much to be desired. This much was acknowledged by no less a personality than President Ahmed Bola Tinubu. In his address at the recently held 2025 All Nigerian Judges Conference of the Superior Courts in Abuja, the president underscored the essential role of judges, reminding them that they remain the true custodians of justice. He warned against the creeping influence of corruption, insisting that justice must never be reduced to a commercial commodity. We move to the stand in our stand. And that is towards the conclusion. The NJC, that is National Judicial Council, must also be ruthless in disciplining errant officers. The unethical conduct of a few stains the entire institution. Such officers must be identified, removed, and prosecuted where necessary. Only then can the culture of impunity be dismantled. The present administration's decision to increase judges' salary is commendable. However, meaningful reform requires that all judicial staff earn a living wage to prevent recurrent industrial actions that paralyze court operations and delay justice. Excerpts from today's stand in leadership newspaper, judiciary beyond the president's charge. From the page 3 of leadership, we move ahead to the back page of the paper where we have Wednesday column with Olufunke Baruwa. Today, November 26, 2025, she's sharing on a global emergency on our screens. A global emergency on our screens. In quote, the call is clear: unite to end digital violence against all women and girls. Not some, not a few, but all. The internet has empowered millions of women. It must not become another site of fear. We must collectively challenge harmful behaviors and build digital spaces where women and girls can exist, create, lead, and thrive without fear. Quote from today's column, back page column, Wednesday column with Olufunke Baruwa, and she's writing on a global emergency on our screens. Before we leave the back page, we visit Ghana Must Go. On the news, Nigeria intensifies bid to secure UN Security Council permanent seat. And Ghana Must Go answered, let's rescue the abducted schoolgirls first. Where they are rescued them now. Congratulations to Nigeria once again. And that also concludes review of Leadership newspaper this Wednesday. Don't forget to log into the website of Leadership for continuation of those headline stories. Don't also forget to hook up to his social media handles. It's on this note we conclude Leadership review. Let's move to the next paper we have on our lineup. Like I mentioned earlier, all the papers are celebrating the release of the Kebbi 24 abducted schoolgirls. 24 kidnapped Kebbi schoolgirls regain freedom is also one of the leading stories on the cover of Nigerian Tribune this Wednesday. Meanwhile, the main story says Tinubu orders area surveillance of Kwara, Niger, Kebbi forest. Again, bandits attack Kwara community, abduct 11 residents. State government sets up safer Kwara security committee to curtail breaches. 10 kidnapped in Kano border communities. Amotekun commences patrol of boarding schools in Ondo. These are the kickers to the leading story, headline story on today's Nigerian Tribune newspaper. Tinubu orders area surveillance of Kwara, Niger, Kebbi forest. The story continues on pages 2 and 26. Sanwo-Olu presents 4.2 trillion naira 2026 appropriation bill to local Lagos Assembly. It was televised live yesterday. CBN retains monetary policy rate at 27%. MPC decision lowers banks' funding costs, expected to spur lending to SME experts. The story is on page 5 of Nigerian Tribune. HID Awolowo Dialogue. Stakeholders call for domestication of national gender policy. One, gender equality, women participation in policies to be addressed. Dialogue designed for next generation of women leaders. Awolowo Dosumu. Ogun Deputy Governor calls for stronger institutional support. Kidnapping. NUT threatens nationwide shutdown of schools. As Catholic bishops warn against rising abuse in Sharia Hizbah operations. And that story continues on page 13 of Nigerian Tribune. Catholic bishops warn against rising abuse in Sharia Hizbah operations. The story that is on page 13 of Nigerian Tribune. Before we leave Nigerian Tribune, let's see what the head news is on today is all about, because every day the Nigerian Tribune always have head story on its cover. Skin lightening product use is high in children under 2 years in Nigeria, according to study. Skin lightening product use is high in children under 2 years in Nigeria, according to a study carried out. That story is on page 27 of Nigerian Tribune, and that also brings to a close the review of front headline stories on Nigerian Tribune this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of Nigerian Tribune. We move ahead to the next paper we have on our lineup, and that is The Punch. The Punch says kidnapping spree escalates as federal government negotiates hostages freedom. Kidnapping spree escalates as federal government negotiates hostages freedom. 18 mothers, children, others abducted in Fresh Kano, Kwara rates, Kebbi gets freed, federal government defense negotiations with bandits. Kickers to the leading story on today's The Punch newspaper. Kidnapping spree escalates as federal government negotiates hostages freedom. Sanwo-Olu presents 4.2 trillion naira 2026 Lagos budget. We also have that picture on the cover of The Punch newspaper. Governor CCB plans digital asset declaration to curb corruption. 2027, I will stop rigging, vote buying, Amu Pitan vows. 2027, I will stop rigging, vote buying, Amu Pitan, the new INEC chair vows. 7 years ago, time we stabilized governance. Lasso professor. That story is on page 14 of the Punch newspaper. 7 years ago, time we stabilized governance. Lasso professor. And that takes us to the last story, just beside the masthead of the Punch newspaper. Wike block as court to nullify PDP convention. Meanwhile, on the masthead, atop the masthead of the Punch, we have the Punch is newspaper of the year. Congratulations to the paper, the Punch. And that also concludes the review of the Punch newspaper this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of the Punch newspaper. We move ahead to the next paper we have in our lineup, and that is Vanguard. Vanguard says abductions, Tinubu orders 24-hour area surveillance on Kwara, Kebbi, Niger forest. We saw the same story. We saw the same story on the cover of Nigerian Tribune. Over 20 abducted in fresh Kwara attack. Governor Idris receives 25 abducted Kebbi schoolgirls. Parents of abducted Niger students plead for rescue. NUT threatens withdrawal of teachers from classroom over attacks. Halt kidnappings. Prosecute perpetrators. UN tells federal government. UN tells federal government. However, viral video of the bandits say that the federal government actually negotiated with them and paid them for the release of those bandits. And here, UN is telling federal government to prosecute perpetrators. That remains to be seen. Federal government, over to you. Why security agencies can't bomb bandit enclaves coming from presidency. And just like leadership, we have the picture of the 24 abducted Kebbi schoolgirls released yesterday beneath the leading story on Vanguard this Wednesday. Insecurity, rights protests, rising attacks. Sanwo-Olu presents 4.237 trillion naira budget for 2026. Nigerians' high-level insecurity worrisome, coming from Catholic bishops. Galatasaray may stop Osimhen from playing in AFCON. That story is on page 36 of Vanguard. Galatasaray may stop Osimhen from playing in AFCON. That takes us to the stories above the masthead of Vanguard. CBN retains monetary policy rate at 27%. Tax systems, Nigerian tech firms celebrated in USA with Microsoft Best Partner Award. Dangote only were partner to raise refinery capacity to 1.4 million barrels per day. And that concludes review of Vanguard newspaper this Wednesday. For more, log into the website of Vanguard. We move ahead to the next paper we have in our lineup, and which is the last paper we have for review this Wednesday, and that is The Guardian. The Guardian's leading story says insecurity triggers rare APC dissent in reps amid fresh Kwara Kano attacks. The story continues on page 6 of The Guardian. Insecurity triggers rare APC dissent in reps amid fresh Kwara Kano attacks. Sani warns northern leaders against playing politics with insecurity. Federal government denies banning open grazing, confirms transition to ranching. Sanwo-Olu promises shared prosperity with 4.23 trillion naira 2026 budget. Federal government unveils online classes for schools over 1.2 million teacher shortage. CBN holds interest rate at 27% as 16 banks meet recapitalization target. And we have the picture, the only story atop the masthead of The Guardian. Dangote partners only were international refinery expansion, 1.4 million barrel per day 2028 target. And lastly, The Guardian also got award at DAME as a best design media website. Congratulations to The Guardian. And that, like I said earlier, brings to a close today's review of newspaper review on your breakfast show Inside Nigeria. My name is Winifred Ugbe, but don't forget to join us same time, same station for another fresh edition of the program. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for watching. For sponsorship and advert placements, please contact 080-3688-6158. Last Word Leadership Podcast Studio. You have the last word.